Greetings from IAS. We are so glad that you have decided to join us today. We are discussing a very important topic today, and that is gender discrimination. We have invited 4 people here who will be helping us address some questions that will be coming from the congregation here in the audience. But before that, I just want to let you know that the opinions that will be mentioned here, shared here, are simply the views of our participants. They do not reflect the philosophy of IAS. And so if you have questions about what is said here, either from the audience or from the 4 participants here, please email us and we'll try to address that. I will be sharing with you the email address of our program at the end of this program. We are so glad that the audience, you're here, and I hope you have a lot of questions and a lot of ideas, a lot of experiences that you want to share with us today. But before we do that, let's get to meet our panelists from 4 different countries and I think continents as well. We're going to start on this side. Please tell us where you're from. No, your name, where you're from, and what you're doing here.
My name is Cristian Dumitrescu. I come from Romania, and I teach Mission and Intercultural Studies in the seminary here at IAS.
I am with Pierre Edmond. I am from Haiti in the Caribbean, and I am a PhD business student, candidate.
Thank you. Welcome to both of you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Trevelyan Oberholster. I come from Botswana, South Africa, and I work here at IAS in the Human Resources Department.
You know, I didn't know you were also a third culture kid. Now I know. Welcome back to our program. I know we have had you here before.
My name is Ricardo Gonzalez. I'm from Chile, and I teach in the area of Theological Historical Department, and I'm currently serving as seminary dean also here at the institution.
Welcome, Dr. Ricardo. This is the first time I think we're having you on this program. It's so good that we have you. For those who are in the audience, whenever you want to ask a question, please come and sit right there. So the first person to sit will be the first person to ask the question. And we want, we can use the third one. Maybe it's a lot easier to use that. Please make sure you state your name and the country of origin. And ask only one question at a time, and you need to use the microphone that we have on this side here. So if you're ready, whoever is ready with the first question or comment, please come to the microphone. And we see somebody there. Please come and join us.
My name is Ruth Pondi from Kenya. I want to ask a question about the men discrimination, especially in IAS. Okay, since I came to IAS, I see there's very active women ministry. What about the men ministry? Are they discriminated?
Ooh.
That is my question. Okay, and then another thing, for women ministry, when the woman preaches, there's a present that is given or a gift. So in my mind, I've been asking myself, is it because women are not supposed to preach, or is it a very difficult job, that's why they're given a gift? But when a man preaches, there's no gift, even when they're visiting.
Wow. It's good we have 2 ministers who are training other ministers here. They're going to start with that, and then we'll ask our 2 ladies to help us. Let's start with you, and we'll go to you after that.
Well, I believe that this is maybe one of the things that can appear, that men are discriminated here, but I don't feel that this is specifically the case. I mean, if we are talking from the point of view that they are not given any gift when they preach, or that there is no men's ministry, it seems to me that this ministry, women's ministry, is related to the interest that the church has in promoting equality, the fact that we are all together. Men have already had enough room to do what they believe that is, necessary or proper to do in many senses in the church. And for that reason, it seems to me that the church is trying to promote more the visibility, I would say, of ladies, to be shown that they have also time and the space to promote some of the things and also the views about some of the topics that we are discussing.
I don't feel discriminated if I don't receive flowers when I preach. But I also experienced just the reverse. When I preached, I was given a special collar with flowers to mark the preacher. But a lady who was there for the same purpose did not receive one. So again, I think the local culture has something to say about this, has an input in it. If we judge immediately, we might be wrong. So we have to first listen and learn what it means in that particular culture to offer flowers.
Okay, one good thing, one of the reasons why I invited Dr. Christian here is that he is an expert in cultural studies, intercultural studies. So I think we're going to be able to address all the questions. But she had, before that one, she had another question. Why is it that we don't have men's ministries here at IS?
Because we probably assume that men don't need it. They are tough. They don't need anything. Ladies are the weak gender, and they need to be supported and helped. And again, I'm talking about an assumption that we don't say it, but it is in the back of our minds.
It is not stated openly, but it is there somewhere. Yes.
I believe the reason why IS Ministries is so prevalent at IS and so well attended is because many women feel the need to be connected, because they feel kind of isolated because they come from different countries. And women's ministries is a place where they can go and get the acceptance and the connection that many women need. Whereas men tend to be more independent in their thinking and their interactions with people. So they will choose themselves to meet with a group instead of attending a planned activity. That's my observation.
And I think that something else that we may recall here, until recently, many women would come here to accompany their husbands. And the husbands would be busy in the library the whole day. By the time they get home, the only ministry they think about is food and then go to bed. But women who are staying back then, I think it's changing now. We have almost equal, men and women studying now. But I think until maybe 5 years ago or more, many women were not actually going to school. Or if they went to school, it was like one class here, one class there, but not really full time. And so you're right, they just felt we need to organize ourselves and stay connected and probably help each other with this loneliness that we're in. While men, when they are done with the Greek and Hebrew, they say, okay, our ministries are done. Yes, you wanted to add something else?
Okay, for me, I don't know how it started, but I think Adventist is one church. It is not happening at IAS. It is everywhere. We don't have men ministry. It is not decided for it to here. For example, in my place, men, sometimes they said, why we do not have a men ministry also? They said that sometimes. They want to have one like the women. But from the church, if you see when you read the manual, they put all the departments, but they don't have any provision for men ministry from the manual. Means we don't have, not because this church doesn't have, but because it is not. But I don't know how they started to have women ministry. And also, when I was in charge of women ministry, this ministry is more to support the youngest women, the new married ladies, something like that, to support them in their struggle. We support each other, but it's not because we are weaker or something like that.
Thank you so much. Any other question? Let's go to the next question.
I am Ranjit Kingston from India. I just would like to address something and then present a question. Gender differentiation is quite common for different cultures across the world, and it is there for a purpose, I believe, because to start with, from the Bible, whenever there is a record of numbers, it always record number of men. They don't talk about number of women, number of children, number of donkeys. They don't mention all of those. There is a purpose for that. Each culture, when their gender differentiation is made, I believe it is for the benefit of the gender. And usually it is for the betterment or the term of security for a gender. For example, men are allowed to go outside the house in the night, maybe to a certain amount of time, but women are not so. The reason being, it is for their security at that particular place or based on that culture. There are some, links behind it for the gender differentiation. However, when it is brought into the public platform, it is seen as gender discrimination. I really believe that when women folks, when they came up and said, we want equality with men, someone turned to them and said, why are you claiming equality? You are already above men. Why are you trying to put yourself down and want to be equal with men? But the thing is, sometimes people forget there is not such discrimination, but we create due to the assumed conditions, we do that. However, I'm coming to the question over here. Having discussed on gender discrimination and identified some spots or soft spots, and we want to address through various remedial things like conducting how to do good parenting and how to have the couples get along well and all those things. I believe personally we are trying to make a discrimination out of the differentiation. First step that we are doing, we are saying it is discriminated. Then we are trying to teach them, and once they go back, it is very hard for the couple or the parent to adapt back into the culture, because most of the students who come to IS are not going to stay in IS for the rest of their life, or not necessarily in an international setup. They are going to go back and they're going to merge with their own culture, and they are going to see themselves out of place if they are going to adopt a system that is going to be completely against the belief of gender differentiation for a purpose back home, then it's going to be hard. Why I say that is with few experiences. I assume myself as a third culture kid because whenever I go back home, I don't find myself back in my place. I am not comfortable there because I have already adopted to a new international system of living. And back there, for me to adjust is very hard. Now we are trying to do something good. I really appreciate it, but at the same time, not with a negative connotation of discrimination, but we may uplift the idea of adaptation rather than coming up to a level of away from discrimination. Now, what could
Can
be
you
done?
go now to
What
the question?
could be done? What could be done in an international setup like this to balance out? Now, you see someone coming from a different background, and you assume that there is discrimination, but not necessarily there is discrimination. Rather than addressing it directly to the discrimination, how do you balance it out in an institution like this?
I think your question is, what is the point of balancing this gender issue at IS when it won't be applied when we go back to our countries?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You wanted to go first?
What I wanted to say is, I have also this concern, and somehow from your explanation, is not all the time. For example, discrimination is defined for some person as a distinction, restriction or exclusion sometimes. For me, I don't like those definitions, those words to describe discrimination, because not all the time exclusion is discrimination. For me, for example, God created us different. We are not the same. God created women and men. I am not pastor. I don't know if you will agree with me. God did not create us the same. Things I can do, even though I said I'm strong, but when you see me, you don't see me so strong as a man, because the man, even though he is not going to the gym, but you see him the muscles are there. Means he is done, he is created to do such work that I cannot do by myself, or I will kill my back, something like that. But sometimes some friends call me men's advocate, because women said they want to be equal when it is in their interest. But when they want something to be done, they ask men to do it. But if you are equal, do it. Why you ask me to do it? If it is in your advantage, you said you are equal. But when it is not, you said, men, please go outside. Someone is knocking. It's late. I am afraid. But when it is something for the salary, no, I want to be equal. Something like that. But also, I think not all things is for everyone. For example, in my place, you will not see a man as nurse. You will not see that. Men are not nurse. For example, you will not see a man as a teacher in kindergarten. You will not see a man as secretary. Because they are not built for that. To do this.
Do you think it is because they're not built for that, or is it something that the culture is imposing on them?
For me, it's
because
not,
I think I can teach those little ones.
For me, it's not for me. It's not culture. It is inside of the person. For example, I heard someone, he's a nurse. I was talking to him. He's here in the Philippines, not at IAS exactly, but in the Philippines. He told me he studied nurse. He's a nurse. But he can't do this job. Because women are multitasker. But he's not. When he's doing one thing, he cannot do three at the same time. But women can do many at the same time. She's built for that. Women cannot do that. For example, if you are in a class, you will see the lady will sit down to play with the children. But the woman, the boy, the man cannot do that easily. He will be very... Yes, it will be done.
I want to disagree with you on some of those statements.
But for me, men are not built to do all those things. It's not discriminating. They are not built to do them. Even for men or women also, even though you can do some plumbery, even though you can do them, but you are not built to do them. You will be strange when doing them. Because God created us different.
I'm very glad that we have two different positions on the same issue here. And I can see Dr. Christian is ready to speak. Please share with us what, I think I've heard some of the things I agree with, and others I said like, okay, no, like teaching a nurse. I've had fantastic male nurses and fantastic female nurses. But are there things that personally I believe that they are probably innate in men and women? I think some of the things you have said, I agree with that.
But, sorry, just many times when you see those nurses, sometimes, not all the times, when you see those men nurses, they look like they are not. There is something wrong with them. They are not like men. They are not like men. They don't behave like men. It's like they have some kind of woman inside of them.
Interesting. I haven't noticed that. I'll be watching that for next time. Yes, Dr. Christian.
I have to agree that when God created us, He created us differently. Yes. And actually not equally. And what I see in the Bible is not necessarily equality, but unity. So when we look at a family, we don't necessarily see two equals, but we see a unity. So if we go from the Bible, from the biblical view, then maybe we look at the world in a different way than culturally, because each culture designs roles. So those roles may differ necessarily from what the Bible teaches. Second point is, yes, we read the Bible, but in the Bible we have people with a certain culture already. So their culture is not perfect. And God is working in their culture that's imperfect. For example, we have polygamy. And I don't see in the Old Testament God judging polygamy. However, today we have an ideal of monogamy. And we are looking with superiority to the Old Testament times because we think, oh, those polygamists. But we travel as missionaries to countries where we see polygamy. So we need to address that issue. Culturally, we are not prepared. We have to go back to the Bible to learn how to still communicate the gospel in those cultures. Coming back to the issue of cultural differences, and when we go back, what shall we do? Don't forget that once we are exposed to a different culture long enough, we embrace some of the values of the new culture. And when we go back, that's why we don't feel at home anymore, because we have a larger worldview with many more values that the local people do not necessarily embrace. So you have to decide now how you are going to act back at home after you have been exposed to different sets of values. You may consider, okay, now I'm at home, I need to act like at home. Or you may say, I'm going to use what I have learned in order to either correct or make life better for people back at home. But what I would advise would be, don't judge people back at home because they have not been exposed like you have been exposed to a different way of life.
Thank you so much. Yes.
In the same vein, I believe that this is a good point. The question is a very important one for an international community as we are. We have to remember some aspects in this discussion. One is that there is an agenda that is being promoted all over the world. And we have to be careful in attributing, everything to gender discrimination. I am not saying that it's not present and it's not prominent. What I'm saying is we have to avoid to tint everything under that color. Secondly, I would say that we're in an imperfect world, as Dr. Dumitrescu mentioned. I mean, this is not a perfect world. And we will have to deal with different situations wherever we are. There is no perfect society. There is no perfect country. There is no perfect culture. We are all different. And wherever you go, we are all affected by sin. And third, I would say, this is a very, unique community. We are in a very special place here, and we are coming from different parts of the world, and we will be going back to maybe for short or long term, back to our places. But I, as one of the objectives of this institution is to prepare leaders for the world. And you have no idea where tomorrow you can be serving. And this experience is unique in giving you, the understanding that maybe there is a different way to see things from my own.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ricardo. Before we ask Dr. Dov to ask his question, I just wanted to go a little further with that in response to Brother Renchith's question. We are here serving or studying here at IAS. As you have mentioned, we are mingling with different people from different cultures. As what he said, when we go back to our respective countries, we are no longer the same. I'm hoping that with the learning that we get here, whether we are working or studying, we have some kind of learning that we're going through, that by the time we get out of here, we'll be able to discern what we can take from IAS and take it to our homes, and what we can leave at IAS, to exemplify things, illustrate things. In the other session that we had on the gender discrimination from the men, there was one man who told us in his culture when he was growing up, The women will not feel loved if the men were not slapping them. Okay, that is their culture. And I happen to come from that culture. Will I really start slapping my wife when I go back to my culture? I think the answer is no. Even if that's what everybody's doing, when they ask me, why aren't you slapping your wife? It will be an opportunity for me to say, listen, where I went, I learned many other ways to show love to my wife. And I'm using some of them. If you want to know about that, I can share. Then, some days you can slap them, and then other times you can maybe buy flowers or take them out for a nice dinner. And so you are not, I think you get to choose what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, because the fact is, if you have been here more than a year, you are no longer the same person who came to IS.
Let me suggest that we should go back to the dictionary to understand the meaning of the term discrimination. Because the original meaning was not negative, was positive. You make a difference. So let's use discrimination exactly in the same vein that you mentioned. When we go back home, we have to discriminate between what is applicable, we can use, and what we cannot use in a certain context.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's go to the next question.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Dolf Oberholster. I come from South Africa. My question is something I've noticed in many Vespers programs, chapel programs, church services. We often find somebody from the front saying, "Welcome, brethren. I invite the brethren to come this afternoon," or, what I'd like to ask is, are we aware how this makes ladies from various cultures feel? On one hand, on the other hand, it seems as if the people using this as a practice say that, look, brethren is just a term that includes everybody. Could I just ask for some comment on this? Perhaps it is more inclusive than what the ladies feel it is. Or perhaps it isn't. Maybe from different cultural perspectives we can gain something.
I think I'm going to ask Mrs. Oberholster to help us. When somebody stands up there and he says, "Welcome to Sabbath School, brethren," how do you feel about that? And what should be done about that?
Personally, when I hear the word brethren, I'm not a brethren. I am a lady. I am a female. Brethren to me, where I grew up, means men. In the church, my home church on the hill at the hospital, when they called for the brethren, it was the elders and the deacons. It did not include women. It did not include the young boys. It did not include children. So to me, this means I'm not included. So when they stand up front and they say brethren, I don't have to listen anymore because I'm not a brethren. Or when we had a women's ministry program the other day, recently, and a lady welcomed the brethren, I had some severe concerns about what are we teaching the people here at IS.
Okay, so you have made the case even worse from the person who asked the question. Is there something we can do about this? Yes.
For me, in my place, they say brothers and sisters.
Okay.
But here, I don't mind.
Okay.
Even though they said, I don't even hear if they don't say women.
Okay.
Because if I have to be mad, I have to be mad with even the Bible. Because when they talk, they don't talk about women. They said men. They count men. They did not count women.
Wow.
When they said about they give food, they said they give food for our 1,000 men. They did not mention women. Means for me, I don't mind.
Okay. Let's go to our pastors. It's like a lot of questions are coming for pastors. How do we address this? Should we stop using this word? It's an archaic word anyways, and just start addressing to people, brothers and sisters in Christ. Or should we continue using the original languages? If you know what I mean.
A more inclusive term will be children of God.
Okay.
But I want to say something.
And that includes also the third gender that we were talking about in another session.
I think it will include everybody.
Okay.
But I would like to draw your attention to something that again refers to the culture of biblical times. When they counted the males and they said, without adding the children and females, keep in mind that there are more females and children present than males. So just be happy. Just be happy when they said, because the other ones could not be counted. There were so many.
I like this approach. This is a psychological approach. I think you have been talking to Dr. Alina lately. She's giving you a few tricks on psychology.
It is an understanding of the culture back then.
Yeah,
and in the Mediterranean culture today, if you go and you are a public speaker, you will see more women being present to listen rather than males. So, again, you understand that when they said, and females or women and children, that means more than the males present. But let me go back to this aspect of a word being sensitive. You know, sometimes it's in the eye of the beholder or the listener. Because all of us come with a set of values. And especially for people coming like us from the Western countries, equality is very high on the list of values. It's part of it's by default, we expect equality. We are looking for equality in the terms used, in the concepts, in the practices. But this is not true with other cultures, where equality is pretty low on the scale. Other values are pretty high, like honor or respect. And when you talk about honor and respect, this is already assigned by the local culture to a certain gender.
Right.
If I come to your culture that is high on honor and respect, and I say, no, you should all be equal, what's going to happen? I am addressing without listening, without understanding, and trying to upset or turn upside down the local set of values, and people will react not in a positive way, but in a negative way. As missionaries, we learn some lessons, especially in the past where we talked about the so-called colonial mission. They went to non-Western countries and imposed their system of values, like Christianity, under the name of Christianity. And people embraced it, but they did not know how to live it. And that's why in many countries we ended up with what we call nominal Christians, because actually they embraced officially the set of values that Western Christianity brought, but in reality what they're living every day their set of own values, and we don't want that to happen.
Interesting. Do you want to add something? Yes, please.
I believe that we need to learn to use the right language when we are talking. I believe that our speech situates us, in circumstances. I mean, our speech is a kind of identifier, and we need to be careful in the way how we approach people, in the way how we address people. And it's true that in a place like this, where our values, culture, are different, we have to be aware of that. However, I believe that we need to learn, we need education also in that sense. In an institution like this, where we have a group of people who already have been trained in their places, they come here, I think that we need to work together to make this aspect, prominent too. Why? Because education is the only way to change some of the things that are happening. And that's the reason why I believe our church is very much engaged, in some, how can I say, activities maybe I would say, let's say the End It Now. The way how, some campaigns that are going all over the world. Why the church is promoting these things? And we need to have time to recognize there is a challenge and we need to work on it. how do we change, the way how we do things? I believe that education is important. We need to talk about this. We need to mention these things. But as it was mentioned, we need to understand also the Bible, because sometimes, because we want to promote some ideas, we do not understand correctly, why some things are there. But we need to discuss them. We need to be taught, in a broader understanding of the challenges. Absolutely, yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go to the next person. Okay, I know we're running out of time, but just make it quick.
Just to mention something. As a church, we are facing this difference in value systems. We are discussing women's ordination. Did you ask the question in the past why people coming from cultures with a different set of values turn down the request for women's ordination? It is simply because we do have in different parts of the world a different set of values. And for people who claim, like in the West, equality and expect equality, it's not the same in other parts of the world, and they turn it down.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. I promise we will not address women ordination, and I'm glad you made it very quick. Let's go to the next. We'll take only 2 more questions and make it quick, 1 minute, and then we'll try to address only 2 more, and then we'll end this.
This is very interesting. So, since we're exploring on gender discrimination, we have a lot of questions, especially when it comes to stereotypes, whether it be by colors or toys for children and emotions and everything. This is not a literal question, but in your perspective, what do you think makes a man man and what makes a woman woman, biblically and sociologically speaking? So I think, what do you think discriminates them from each other?
Well, I think the best person to answer this, I will ask Dr. Christian and also Ma'am Trevelini here, because she did psychology, so she can help us some. And you will definitely help us with the biblical part, because it's more of, again, the cultural studies. I think intercultural studies will be part of that.
I think one of the very important things is when you have a child, to accept the sex of the child. Accept and celebrate the sex of the child. The child knows that it's wanted, not that, oh, I wish you had been a boy, or I'd wish you'd been a girl, but accept the child that God has given you. He knows why you had a girl or a boy. Yes, there's all sorts of things you can do to try and have a boy or a girl, but ultimately it's God who designs the child within you. I think once you've accepted that and you help the child learn who he or she should be. And this is a learned behavior as well by the parents' roles. If a father respects the mother, the son will learn to respect his sister, his mother, and other girls, and vice versa. I also think that even though we have different roles and we do different things like washing the dishes or doing laundry, these are something that both boys and girls need to learn. Like somebody said, it's important for both boys and girls to learn life skills. And many times we don't teach one gender or the other specific life skills because we don't want them to be effeminate or we don't want them to be tomboys. However, for me growing up, there were many of us, some of them were much older, some of my brothers and sisters were younger, but we all knew that we were loved as a boy or a girl. And nobody ever said to me, I wish you were a boy. They were glad that I was a girl, and yes, I was maybe encouraged to do more things with girls, although I had 5 older brothers, so I tend to do things with the boys more. So I enjoy doing things with my dad much more than washing dishes and cooking. But we all had chores and we all had to learn. So I think it's a matter of a parent's perspective, the culture you grow up in, and helping them define for themselves what they are and who they are by the time they go to school. Because this is a gift God has given us to be a boy or a girl. And what are the roles? We have many role models in the Bible. We have many role models in history that we can learn about the different people and how they learned and interacted with people. So I think that's one way to do it.
Thank you so much. You have addressed more or less the psychological and social part, but I want you to address the biblical part, and then we can take the last one. I know our time is on our side.
Biologically, I think there is no question. But in terms of what society assigns as roles, I think here we have to be careful and to learn. Because, as I said, we travel all around the world and we see different patterns for a male or for a female. To give you an example, I travel in Europe, and if I try to be nice and to a gentleman and to open the door for a lady, I expect the lady to say thank you and go through. But the lady most of the time would say, "Why are you doing that to me? Do you think I cannot open my own door?" So again, did I do something wrong? No, but I did it according to my understanding of what a male should do. However, in different cultures, we may learn it differently. The problem is not with the diversity of models. The problem is when one model encourages abuses of the other gender. It might be both ways, but the abuse is to be condemned, not the diversity or the differences.
The biblical part. Do you want to briefly talk about that?
In terms of
how do we know somebody is a man, somebody is a woman, from biblical perspective?
Yeah, God had assigned also roles. And not only that, but if you read the New Testament, you see that we are gifted differently. And the Holy Spirit assigns different gifts. If we start complaining that we don't have the gifts we see in the other gender, then I think we are on the wrong area. We need to learn and to receive, to develop more gifts. That's the encouragement that we receive from the Bible. And we also read the writings of Ellen White. And I like when she said that our young people need to be trained equally to know how to, back then in that culture, harness a horse, cook, and do many things equally. So it's not that only boys need to learn something and girls need to learn something else, but at the same time we need to complement each other and be unity.
Okay, let's take the next one. This will be our last question because we have definitely run out of time. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Mine probably will be a reflection. I grew up whereby boys were sent to the shop and they could pass where there are monkeys. And interestingly, my grandmother used to say, let me or my brother go to the shop where pass through the monkey, but my sisters could not go because the monkey could not get out of the road. So is nature also teaching us something? As I was coming here, I met my Congolese brothers, and I was asking them about the gorillas, because we hear out there that gorillas will not respect a lady along the way, as opposed to a male who is about the same area. Is nature also trying to give us this distinction that we need to celebrate? I'm just trying to think aloud.
Do you want to take that one? That one is a deep one. Science here. Animals distinguishing between, using gender discrimination. Amazing.
For me, I agree with what he said because I experienced that also in my place. Not, for example, a horse. Women cannot just get on easily. Men is okay, but for women, not easily. You cannot. For the donkey, you can. Women can. But for the horse, no. You have to know.
I'm definitely getting shocked here. You know, I'm hearing things. Am I hearing things or is this a reality?
No, it's the reason why I said God gives us some different skills. God created us different. You cannot put everything together because everyone says that we are the same, we are the same, we are equal. For me, we are completing each other. One complete the other. Women complete the men. But men, forgive me, men is not, in some ways, when I say equal, when I say it's not equal, it's not their, you know. For me, they are not equal. Let's say, let me say it like that. They are not equal. They are completing each other. They are not inferior, one is superior, no. But they are made, they are built differently for different purpose to meet different objectives. To be one, to be united, as you said. To be one, to accomplish the mission, but not we are trying to do.
Let me try with Dr. Ricardo. Dr. Ricardo, do you think it's natural for us to just have two complete sets of roles from nature, to the point that even gorillas, we know that that's a woman, I'm going to slap her, I'm not going to allow her to pass. But and the horses themselves. And yet, we, as humans, are trying to change this natural course by promoting equality. I know you come from the Western side, just like Dr. Christian. Do you think we are maybe going against the nature? God is saying, you are different. Even the gorillas know that.
This is a good question. I believe that, as Christian mentioned, we come, with a set of values, and culture affects very much the way how we are, the way how we think. And we cannot impose our set of values upon people who are from a different context like me. Let's say in my place, we don't have gorillas. We don't have that, Yes.
So this concept is obviously foreign to you.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, in some places, maybe it works very well, and it's very easy to identify this is a male, this is a female. But let me tell you, I believe that this is one of the most challenging topics that we are facing today. Because we have to remember, sin has affected every area of human beings. Sin has affected our relationships. Sin has affected the way how we deal with each other, but also has affected us in our inner being. Our mind is tainted by sin. To what extent we can easily explain things is very difficult to say easily. In this case, this is the situation very clear, and in this case, it's not. What I'm trying to say is, in the Bible, we have principles. They are very clearly identified there, but we have to remember that we are living today in a time in which some of these Bible principles are being challenged, not only because of the idea of the people, it's because of the effect of sin also in humanity. And for that reason, the church tries to deal with this. When we have to talk about these issues, it's not easy to say it's black and white. Based on the Bible, we can say, according to the Bible, is in this context, this is the answer. But to explain some of the things that are happening today with some people is very challenging. And what I'm trying to say is, we have role differentiation in the Bible. What man is expected to do. They were created together. Men, the woman was taken from men, and then we have the first couple, and the Lord says, this is what I want you to do now here in the garden. But from that time to today, you can see how sin has continued affecting, human race. And what I'm trying to say is, do we have a clear Bible principles? Yes. We have cultural elements that can help us to differentiate things? Yes. But there is still, an area in which we have to be careful. We are being challenged by that.
I think that was one of the most challenging questions. We have just run out of time. I know we may continue discussing this, but we want to thank all of you for being here and sharing with us your ideas and questions. I hope that you have benefited from the inputs from the 4 participants we have here. If you have questions or comments, please email us at united@ias.edu. Again, the email address is united@ias.edu. Until we meet again next time, may you remain united in diversity. Thank you so much.